you should already start to build out what are my goals for 2026. Take a look at what did I do in the last 12 months from October 1st of 2024 to September 30th of 2025. See the revenue, see the recruitment, see the number of staff members, see the billable hours, see the number of caregivers and admissions of services, everything, do an audit of the last 12 months and then decide, all right, if I want to grow my business by 25%, take all of my numbers and multiply it by 1.25.
You're listening to Home Care Hindsight, the podcast where we talk with home care leaders about the big mistakes they've made and the even bigger lessons they've learned along the way. I'm David Knack, head of sales here at Zengage, and I've built a career on the idea that we learn a whole lot more from our mistakes than from our successes, which is great because I've made a lot of mistakes. I've gotten to know some of the leaders in this industry who've built amazing businesses and are super well respected. So I thought it'd be fun, instead of asking them about the great things they've accomplished, to have them tell the story of one of the biggest mistakes that they've made and how that mistake changed their thinking and the way they run their business. Welcome back to another episode of Home Care Hindsight, brought to you by Zengage. I've been really excited about the results we've seen from Zengage Operator recently. Was on a call with somebody, startup agency. He's growing really rapidly, and our AI plus our team has given him the ability to get out of scheduling and work on the business, not in the business, and spend that time he was doing, filling call outs instead on marketing and getting in front of social workers in the morning when he's typically filling call outs. He's able to get out and market. I am joined today by a returning guest. This is my first returning guest, Steve the Hurricane Weiss. Thank you so much for being here. How's it going?
Thank you for having me, brother. It is great to be back. I loved our first venture. Go with it. And I know this one we'll just pick up where we left off last time, brother. So thank you.
That sounds perfect. Peeling back the curtain for anybody listening who cares about this stuff. We did zero prep for this. I said, Steve, what do you want to talk about? Does this sound okay? And it was like, sure. I was just about to do that next week anyways. And so let us know if this is a useful format for these kind of second, when people come back on the show. I don't want to run you through the same rigmarole that I typically do. And now, we'll go from there. So, Steve, as we're talking about, we're in September, July, August, late June is such kind of a wash for making any progress in the business. You're kind of in this summer slump. Folks are going on PTO. Everybody's wearing a bunch of different hats. You've got all kinds of activities with the kids. There's a ton of stuff that distracts from the focus of the business. It's also a weird dip in the business, right? It just is a lull and kind of a slump. We are now out of the slump. Kids are back in school. Everybody's back in the office. And, I think it's an opportunity to get back in and get serious about parts of the business. But I think sometimes it's tempting to be like, okay, I'm going to fix everything all at once. And then you're like, okay, well now we're, shotgun approach. We're a mile wide, an inch deep. And so the question that I have is what should people be doing right now to finish 2025 strong, to set themselves up for success in 2026?
I love what you said there too, David, about the whole lull around Labor Day. I actually joked with my staff internally and I said it was Labor Week because nobody did anything that week. So
that's good.
It was real interesting. But now that things are starting to get back to the full swing and it's kind of business as usual, the thing that I've been telling a lot of folks to focus on to finish this year strong is to really make sure that you have a tight relationship at your referral sources. One of my calls that I had recently with one of my clients who we were speaking about how the fourth quarter is always a pop season if you prepare for it and you work for it, meaning what we do in September and October really will dictate what's going to happen in November, December as we finish the year. And one of the things that came up that a lot of people seem to forget, or you don't even think about it, is elective surgeries tend to pick up at the end of year. Why? Because you have copays and insurance and deductibles have been met. So the person putting off the knee, the person putting off the hip, the person putting off the shoulder, all of those things have long recoveries for the elderly, right? And those long recoveries, they're going to get those surgeries now. So if I'm in spending extra effort, getting into my skilled nursing facilities, getting into my hospitals, getting in with the physicians, I'm going to see an uptick in those type of orthopedic procedures, which will result in a spike in revenue as I finish out the year. That's a quick, short one that people can do right away.
This is really, really smart because I've thought a lot about the seasonality of the business from the perspective of like private pay referrals, right? Kids come home for Thanksgiving, they come home for Christmas, and it's like they have the conversation all together like, oh, mom's not doing so good. We've got to figure something out. And so there's this big pop in the private pay, self-referral, calling off a billboard or a piece of direct mail or a website or whatever. But I was going to pick your brain on some of the ways that from a institutional referral, from a healthcare referral side of things, that stuff picks up. And so the orthopedic thing makes perfect sense. And so walk me through like the patient journey on the, like, let's say shoulder replacement surgery.
Yeah. So a lot of times when it's an elective surgery, physicians are telling people to make plans in advance, right? So this is where, from the home care perspective side of it, if I know these orthopedic procedures are going to have an uptick in this fourth quarter, I should create an orthopedic specialty program. I should go to my physician groups that do orthopedics and to the hospitals and to these surgery centers and to the skilled nursing rehabilitation centers and make sure that in September or October, I'm having an in-service on our orthopedic program and talk to them about having people contact the agency before the surgery to get the care plan in place so that when they get out of the surgery, they can go home and the agency is ready to bring this person on. That's a huge competitive advantage right there.
And there's kind of two layers to this. The first is like, we don't want to go into the physician's office and say, you know, I really love working with shoulder surgeries. When my dad had shoulder surgery, I took care of him. That can be the client story, but the physician-facing story is all around outcomes and the kind of care, and that we are going to, if they refer them, we are going to maintain the level of professionalism that they expect and, you know, that they would entrust with us. But I think the other piece is like, hey, here's the stuff we're going to do that's different from everybody else. And so when it comes to like the stuff we're going to do, let's stay on shoulders here. Like, what's the stuff from a care plan perspective that we know we're going to need to do if somebody's coming in for a shoulder surgery?
So the biggest thing with anything else is making sure that you have enough time to do an accurate plan of care assessment. That is the biggest thing. So that if I know, and this is something that you can do pre-planning with your physician, something you can do pre-planning with your skilled nursing facilities to have an idea as to what are the kind of exercises that a rotator cuff surgery is supposed to continue at home. That's something that we can make sure our management team is aware of so that when we bring the patient on and then that patient goes home with a caregiver, we can then cross-train that caregiver and at least being aware of how to help the person get dressed, how to help the person take a shower, how to help the person manage the wounds, because obviously we can't, do the non-medical can't do the wound, but we can help the patient manage it, right? Manage the pain level that comes after having an orthopedic procedure and all of those things. So a little bit of prep work in advance makes it so that it's easier for us to be able to set it up. And again, this is part of that lunch and learn in service.
I really like this too because, like the medication reminders thing is kind of a thorny issue. There's some states where you can do medication reminders. There's other states where it's not allowed. Like it's, very state by state.
There are some states you could open up a pill planner if somebody else filled it and you could give the person the meds.
Yeah.
There's 50 sets of rules.
Yep. But the along the same lines as like the idea of a medication reminder is like, hey, often like you get a patient, you do all this work to set them up for success with some kind of orthopedic surgery, hip, knee, shoulder, whatever. And then they don't do their part to do the exercises on their end to set themselves up for success. And so one of the things that we train all of our caregivers on when they're dealing with somebody with orthopedic stuff is to be there at the PT appointments, if that's something the client's open to, and learn and ask questions of the PT. Hey, when we're at home, what are the best ways that I can support? How often should we be doing this? Which are the most important exercises for us to hit if we're crunched on time? And like be a collaborative partner along with that PT, not to do the physical therapy, but to remind of those independent exercises that need to be done on a daily basis for this to be successful.
Absolutely. Something that can be done earlier in the skilled nursing facilities or in the rehabilitation centers is to do what's called a caregiver training. And all of these places, they offer caregiver training. Now, their term caregiver is not our term caregiver. Their term caregiver is like a spouse, a significant other, an adult child, or someone who's going to be the primary caregiver in the house. i.e. that could be us, right? So they already offer this as part of the Medicare benefit. It's typically done the day before discharge. So again, if that referral is made early enough and we can plan for it, we can plan for the caregiver who will be the primary caregiver in the house to come in and do that caregiver training to keep those exercises continuous going home for what we all call for continuity of care.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Steve, we're gonna break character here for a second.
The refrigerator's here.
The refrigerator, the 16-month-old is here. Allie, you out there?
How could you tell?
I couldn't. Come here. You can make your podcast debut. Allie, this is Steve.
Sorry.
Hi, Allie.
Steve, this is Joni.
Hi, cutie. Hi, Joni.
Are you gonna say anything into the mic? You want to say anything? No? You're just so quiet. I bring you up to the mic and you're like, I'm very shy. And I just heard you out there, Steve heard you out there shrieking. Yeah.
You should have a podcast, Mike. You don't have a kitty.
That's true.
Yeah, the little ones, I always every time I remember to my kids, they always loved the way it fingers. So I always do like the bird and stuff and butterflies, and they get like zoned in on it. It's cute.
All right. I don't need that cat. Get out of here. All right. Get all these animals out of here, too.
Come on, everybody.
Go. Thank you. It's a zoo here, Steve. I've got too many animals. We had lots of animals. Then we had a baby. And I was like, my God, who had the idea to get all these animals? Here we are.
I have 2 dogs and 3 kids, so I understand.
Yep. Yeah, 2 cats, a dog, a kid. It's too small of a house. It's a fine house, but it's too small of a house. All right, back into stuff. We can transition to kind of the next thing. Okay, so that's thinking about marketing to our healthcare referral services this time of year. I really like that insight into like the seasonality of the business. What else is top of mind? Marketing elsewhere in the business for you?
So I'll actually shift it to like a little bit of operations to finish strong, right? This is a great time of year to take a look at as I'm planning for 2026, right? The end of 2025, you set everything in motion for 2026 to start running. So you should already start to build out what are my goals for 2026. Don't wait until January, February to start planning for 2026. You got to start planning for that now. So you take a look at what did I do in the last 12 months from October 1st of 2024 to September 30th of 2025. See the revenue, see the recruitment, see the number of staff members, see the billable hours, see the number of caregivers and admissions of services, everything, do an audit of the last 12 months, and then decide, all right, if I want to grow my business by 25%, take all of my numbers and multiply it by 1.25. That means I need to be able to bring in this amount of caregivers, this amount of patients, this amount of revenue. And then you just build your business plan there so that this way, come November, I have my plan in place for 2026 already, and I'm not waiting until January. I'm starting that now. So that's a huge aspect of it. And then I'll add one more thing, and I'll turn it back over to you. Once you get your plan in October together for the next year, in November, start looking for the vendors and the support services that you will need to reach those goals. Because obviously, if I'm going to get 25% more output or 50% more output or whatever it is I'm looking for, to be able to make that kind of a jump, I will probably need help. And I can't just do what I've been doing, otherwise I'm not going to get that. I got to do something different, or I got to at least add on to what I'm doing, whether it's bringing another person, bringing a consultant or whatever. So October, plan for 26, November, shop for what tools, what services, what support, training, consulting, AI, whatever, to help me to reach these goals, and then make your decision in December so that January, when the first comes, you hit the ground running. Don't wait until 26 to plan 26.
Yeah, there's so many people who get started with 2026 in March, right?
Right. 3 months into the year, right.
This is an aside. I've been in sales roles before where we get the plan for the year in like March 1st. You're like, there's a plan for the year? Like, we're 2 months in. We're a sixth of the way through the year. This is like 14% of the way through the year, and we're now setting goals. So I'm sympathetic to
I'll
getting
tell you,
this behind
brother,
60 days.
2025, personally, my company, we are going to do 50% more revenue than what we did last year. And we were already a multi-million-dollar company. So to grow by 50% more, that is significant. I planned for this around this time in 24. For next year, I already have my January full. My February is half full. March already has stuff on it. April. So I'm already putting stuff on the calendar for next. I think right now, I just got a proposal for something the last week of April of 2026. And it's not even the end of September yet. So I'm already 6 months in the future. That's where we need to be if we want to scale and grow and have, 25, 30, 40, 50% revenue jump year after year.
So let's dial in on goals for a second. Give me here's what a bad example of goals for 2026 looks like. And then give me here's what my best clients do. Here's what the template that I wish everybody's goals looked like for 2026. And we can pick a particular area, recruitment, operations, sales, marketing, whatever.
So let's start off with the bad goal, right? A bad goal is not a SMART goal, right? A SMART goal we know is specific, measurable, attainable, realistic over a period of time. That's a SMART goal. A bad goal is to say, I want to grow my business. A bad goal is to say, I want to improve my recruiting. A bad goal is to say, I want to do more marketing, right? Those are bad goals because you could put some money into something and assume it's going to make it grow without it being measurable, without it being attainable, without having any true direction with it. An example of a good goal, and I'll give you an example with an actual story client of mine. So I have a client that's overseas in the UK, right? So this isn't even in the United States. We're international, right? So I got this big client in the UK. This big client of mine, when they started with us about a year ago, they were around 3,200 billable hours per week. Now, this particular client, at that time, they had an 80-20 split on government payer source, because the UK is a little bit different. The government payer source is 80% of their revenue, and 20% of it is private pay. And they came to me because they said, Steve, we really want to get this to a 50-50 split. That's a good goal, right? So it's not, we want to grow it, but we don't want to grow it yet. Let's get the revenue to a 50-50 split without cutting clients. Just replace what's coming in and hold where we are at on the government pay so that when it's 50-50 split, we can handle anything that the government throws at us. So today, I'm proud to say that not only are they not at 3,200 hours, they're actually at 4,000 billable hours, but they are also at 4,000 billable hours with a 50-50 revenue split between government payer source and private pay. So they planned for it, went out, got consulting, we executed a plan, did some direct referral marketing, made sure the operation was set to be able to convert these clients, sell services that are needed versus what the person's asking for. A lot of times people ask for services and they need a lot more, so understand the difference when you're doing a consultation. And then as a result, a year later, not only did the business grow by about 20%, but they got the payer source mix. And I'll throw in one last caveat, they were smart. Because around April of this year, the government made a reimbursement adjustment that if they didn't have that 50-50 split plan in place, they probably would be in some deep doo-doo right now. And so you have to plan for those things. And that's what they did. And they're rocking and rolling.
Yeah, the diversification of revenue streams is,
Huge.
super, super important. Let's kind of think through this in another example. Let's say somebody's goal is to grow their VA service line next year. And today it's 5% of their business. At the end of 2026, they want to get it to 20% of their business. What are some of the steps that they might take, the kind of action items that they'd put on that plan? And then I think one of the things that we think about sometimes is what would go wrong in the business that would prevent us from getting to this goal, and how do we plan for that? And so talk a little bit about VA. Somebody wants to grow that by 4x to 20% of their business. What are some of the steps that they might take there?
So first off, David, I'm so glad that you said 20% and not higher. And the reason why I say that is because I'm a big believer in you want to take VA, you want to work with people, but you don't want it to be more than 20% because if the government does change the reimbursement, which notoriously in 20 years of me being in this field, the VA has changed their reimbursement like 9 times. And sometimes it's better and sometimes it's not better. So that's why I don't like people having more than 20%. But to go from 4% to 20%, that is a big jump. That's a 5X, right? So in order to do that, one of the things you have to be able to do is make sure you have the right cash flow because you're going to have to be able to pay caregivers before you receive reimbursement. And laying out that money until you get the reimbursement from the VA, you're going to be floating it for 30 days. You're going to be floating it for 60 days. You might be floating it for 90 days, depending on who you're working with and how you're getting reimbursed. It's not going to be the same cash flow as it is with the private pay. So make sure that the cash flow is where it's supposed to be. Another thing that people can do to get more VA clients is to partner up with the VA hospitals. Make your rounds, get in there, do things that support veterans themselves. I have a client who right now is doing like not a support group per se, but he just has like maybe it is a support group. He has veterans who get together and they just talk on a regular, consistent basis. And these aren't like veterans, like current young veterans. These are older veterans, pretty much geriatric veterans who are getting together, talking about Vietnam, talking about the Korean War, all that other good stuff. And they just get together on a regular, consistent basis. And by doing that, you're getting the word out there. By doing that, people understand that you serve veterans. They may not come to you themselves. They might. But they also may know another veteran that will come to you. It could help you get in there. So those are some of the things that I have people doing right now that's helping them to get more VA business.
All right. I want to talk about 2 other topics. The first one is let's turn our attention to kind of the caregiver side of the business. Retention is still a huge challenge. Getting caregivers to perform the way you need them to is still a huge challenge. EVV compliance, clocking in and out to make billing not a nightmare, call outs, like all that kind of stuff. I talk to people all the time and that's still a huge challenge. And so pick something on the recruiting, the retention side of the house or the scheduling side, something that touches caregivers. What are some of the things that somebody can do to focus on making 2026 easier, better from a caregiver perspective, have more caregivers, have more better caregivers? It's bad grammar. You get the idea.
My biggest thing, and I've been saying this for 14 years now, is it's all about the type of customer that we're bringing in, and it's about finding and focusing on the total care customer. Not that we don't want every customer, but I feel that agencies, they've really cut off their nose to spite their face by taking on 15 clients that are getting, less than 20 hours per week. So what happens is it makes it very difficult for you to keep a caregiver, right? A caregiver, in order for them to have 40 hours of work, you have to give them 4 or 5 patients. They lose one patient because patients are constantly coming and going. And then you have to try and find another patient to take those exact hours so that David can keep his full-time schedule. That is impossible. That's why the turnover rate is so bad. So if I want to really focus and hone in on retention, I want to really focus in on bringing in more medically complicated total need patients. 40 hours, 56 hours, 84 hours, 168. Every bit of marketing collateral and material should be around that so that I can then run ads where I'm placing ads saying I'm looking for caregivers, 1 patient, full-time work. Apply now. So a caregiver sees that and they're like, wait a second, I have 5 clients. I'm driving all over the place. I just lost one. I'm going to drop these 5 clients and go work for David's company because I'm going to get 1 patient and it's going to be 40 hours for me, or 1 patient, it'll be 56 hours for me. I'll take it, right? I'll take the overtime. That's what caregivers are just like anybody else. They want consistent work. They want consistent hours. So if we bring in the right type of patients and build our business operationally around total care patients, it's fewer patients than serving the masses. But it's much easier. You place the caregiver and that patient together, and they could be together for years, David, and you are retaining it. And then all of a sudden, word starts to get out, word of mouth, the caregivers, because they all talk to each other. David's company is the one that has the good cases. David's company is the one that has all of the long hours and full-time work. This is the best place for me to be. And you will have more word of mouth than you've ever had if you're giving caregivers long-term, sustainable, full-time hours.
I love that. Let's bring this home to a particular agency I was talking to yesterday. 11 months into the business, in that squeeze between I got to recruit all the time, I got to market all the time, but that, it just is, it never quite matches up. And my sense is the first 3 years in the business, most people are stuck in that squeeze of, 5, 10, 15 clients, trying to find caregivers to match up. You got to use some digital leads. So you've got to kind of cobble together some clients, and you're not able to be as selective as somebody who's established and can pick and choose a little bit more. And the thing that they were running into was having a roster of about 12 caregivers, and they had 3 that were pretty consistently working and were really responsive. The other folks just kind of weren't as responding to, the shift requests and the notifications from their scheduling system and all that. And so my opinion, and I'm the first to say I probably don't know what I'm talking about. I've never run an agency. There's a reason I sit on this side of the screen from people who are actually doing the work. So the first thing I said is you guys are in the middle of it right now. This is what you're doing is hard. If it was easy, everybody would be doing it. There's no silver bullet to fix this. But my hypothesis was you've got some caregivers on your bench who don't think they work for you anymore. Right? They're like, I've tried working for that agency. They never got me a case. That, for better or worse, they have just kind of soured on the idea that you're going to get them anybody. And so my advice to them was, it probably doesn't feel great, but you've got to up your recruiting velocity so that you get lucky and you get a new, amazing caregiver in the door right at the time you get a great client. What's your opinion on folks who are in that 3 to 5 client range, what they can do from a recruiting, from a caregiver perspective to keep folks ready on the bench to hop it when there's a case that's available to them?
So that person out there, I got a 3-part answer for you, right? So part 1 is put your due diligence in, keep going. I know it's not easy. We've all started business. Unlike you, David, I had 7 years as an agency, right? And I came into an existing business, but we only had 16 patients on our census when I came in. We were very small, and I scaled it to 100 patients, 5 million in revenue, 5,000, 6,000 hours a week, et cetera. But those first 3 years, you got to put your due diligence in. When I started Home Care Evolution in 2012, the first 3 years, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I was working from 7 o'clock in the morning until 9, 11 o'clock at night. I didn't even take a shower, right? I just didn't have time to do anything for those first 3 days of every single week because that's what's required. So put your due diligence in. It does get easier. To the second part, where you're talking about, David, I love how you mentioned the caregivers that you're hiring, but you don't have a case for them, and so they kind of don't work for you anymore, even though they're in your bucket. This is where I recommend people keeping a relationship going, keep a dialogue going. You can use some AI tools to keep some text messaging back and forth, make a phone call every once in a while. I teach people how to create what I call a weekend hot list. So on Thursday, you call people who aren't working for you yet, but they've gone through orientation, and just see what their availability is. Are you available for a case? Are you available for the case? Great. I got 3 people who are my hot list for Friday, Saturday, Sunday. An inquiry comes in, it's going to one of them, right? Monday, create a hot list for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, right? You just do this and just keep that list going. There are people who say, no, I'm not available for a case. Great. Put a note in your software. Contact this person in 30 days, right? Put a alarm in there so that 30 days later it comes up. Let me reach out to this person again, because caregivers are always turning over cases. So somebody who's not available to work today might be available to work around Thanksgiving, right? So if you don't have a notification in your software to remind you to do it, you just let that person go to the wayside. Don't let people go to the wayside. Keep the dialogue going. That's my second tip. The third tip I'll throw out there, my final tip, is stay active out there with your marketing efforts, owners. There's a phrase that I've learned recently, and it's not from Home Care, but I'm bringing it to Home Care. A buddy of mine is the number 3 real estate agent in RE/MAX. There's 70,000 real estate agents in RE/MAX. This guy is number 3. So he's top of the top. And the 1 and 2 are actually contractors that build houses. So it's kind of like an unfair advantage, let's say.
Sure. Yeah. If you get the builder, you're crushing it.
Right. You're building it and you're selling it, whatever. So it's a little different. But this guy just sells, right? So he's technically number 1, we'll call him. But when he and I had lunch a couple weeks ago, I was talking to him about all the things that he's doing, and he asked me about what I do, and he goes, I said, there has to be a Steve the Hurricane for real estate. And he was telling me about this person, I forget the gentleman's name, that he heard at a conference, but he said that he learned something that really resonated with him years ago that he strives to do, and that's why he is where he is. And this is what's called being 5 mile famous. And I love it. Be 5 mile famous. So as the business owner who doesn't have enough time to hire a marketer or doesn't have enough money to hire a marketer, and I got to be able to do it, how can I be 5 mile famous? I don't need to know everybody in the world, but I need to make sure that every single person who could send me a patient in healthcare, elder care, knows of me and my brand. I can do this by going to a networking event once a week. I can do this by going to a chamber once a week. I can do this by scheduling a lunch once a week. I can spend 6 to 10 hours a week through 3 or 4 marketing initiatives that are public. Go to your vendor fair at the hospital. Go to the community day in your township or whatever it is and get a table and just meet people. You always say, wave, shake hands, and kiss babies, right? Like you're running for office. 5 mile famous. And I'll give you a quick story if it's all right, David.
For the listener, I just got a new garage fridge delivered, which is the height of suburban luxury. Steve, the most accommodating guest, just let me wander away in other parts of my house for a while. Okay, you were about to tell me a story about specifically the recruiting kind of challenges that we're talking about for early folks.
Yeah, so, and the challenges of doing all aspects of it, right? So due diligence, we said, make sure that we have the right kind of hours for them, build around. And then we also talked about the staying at the 5 mile famous, right? So the client that I've been working with, and this lady has become my favorite client because of the overcoming adversity. So she is this person that you're speaking about, the new owner, less than 3 years in business, 5 to 7 clients on her census, a couple hundred hours, right? Trying to do everything herself. Over the last 12 months since I've been working with this lady, she personally suffered 2, not 1, 2 heart attacks. 1 in November of last year and 1 in May of this year. So she had every reason to falter and not do the things that I just said a little while ago, right? Instead, because she stuck to her plan, she stuck to her guns, she brought in a virtual assistant to help with some of the workflow. She made sure she mastered her technology. When she was recovering in the hospital, she was learning all of her AI and learning all of the tech that she has to really fully maximize it. So once she got home and she was fully recovered and she can go again, she was able to run and delegate to the VA and virtual assistant and use the technology to its fullest after hours so that she could be available for her 40 hours a week to grow her business. She went from 200 hours last October to this week she's at 900 hours. That's huge. In 1 year, that's huge, right? I'm not going to get in the full numbers, but that's 7-figure growth in 1 year, having suffered a heart attack twice. I know it can be done, but you have to have that drive and determination in you, and you have to get your house in order, your ducks in a row to be able to make it happen.
I want to go back to one thing that you said that I thought was really wise on the point of keeping your caregivers engaged in the middle. And look, I'd be the first to tell you, caregiver engagement is super important. We've got a whole platform that automates that. But when people are starting out and they've got 8 or 10 caregivers on their roster, you are going to know those people. You are going to engage with those people automatically, organically. You don't need a platform for that at that point. And in fact, we've seen folks, come onto our platform and it just hasn't been the best fit for them. And so I'd be the first person to say, get a platform when you need it to help you engage your caregivers. But at that point in time, you are texting, you are calling these people. They feel like your extended family. Dysfunction and everything. And the thing that I like about calling, getting availability over the weekend is once you've done that a couple of times, once you've got your hot list, you are able to go back to people that said, yeah, nah, the last time or screened your call. And you can tell them, hey, I did this last week and I got Jamie this sweet case. And I'm so excited for her because she's going to be a great fit for this client. Here's why. I want you to be the next Jamie next week. And you're able to socialize. Like, I'm not just calling you for my health. I am calling you because we are going to get cases over the weekend. And I want you to be the person who gets that case. So I think there's a really powerful way to like compound. You make that a habit, make that a practice, but be able, don't forget to share the success that other people within the organization are having. They are missing out, and you want to create a little bit of that FOMO when you're building that hot list.
Well, to your point, David, I mean, I'll go back in time for my own self here. And when I first came on at Care Choice, and we didn't have, Disengage wasn't even a thing, right? We didn't have all of this technology. So early on, I was texting people all throughout the week. I'm out marketing. I'm talking to you and you're a social worker and you say you have somebody coming home who's going to need help soon. I'm texting 2 or 3 caregivers like, hey, listen, I'm talking to a social worker right now. They got somebody coming home. Are you available? Like I'm keeping it going. Once the person was signed up for services and the caregiver's in the house, I'm driving by, I'm checking in on my patient. I'm not doing what the government says come out once every 60 days or once every 90 days, depending on what state we're in. I'm going there every week. I'm going there every 2 weeks. So I'm starting to build a relationship with the existing workforce. And so that when I know that this patient's ending, I'm going to say, hey, David, I know the patient's ending. I'm talking to 3 social workers right now. I'm going to get you work. Can you give me a week? David's like, yeah, sure, no problem. Now I go into the social worker. I say, hey, listen, I got David. David's a great caregiver. His case is ending on Friday. If you got anybody going home that needs care, David's available. I'm trying to get him work. Monday comes, I get 4 referrals. David is going to get one of those 4 referrals, as will 3 other people that I go out and sign. So it's this constant. And as the business owner, the new small business owner, we kind of got to do all of this, but it keeps things going. I got another funny quick story for you. You made me it's funny. You're making me think, right? So there's this one guy, because of these relationships, right, that we create with our caregivers, and I'm texting them and I'm seeing them. I go to an assisted living and there's 3 of my caregivers working at an assisted living. I see the director of nursing, but I see my 3 patients. I see my 3 caregivers. I'm building a relationship. There was this one guy, his name was Bootcamp, right? He's from Africa, and I'll never forget him because he was one of my caregivers. He would always come with me, and for 7 years, he worked for me for like 3 of those 7 years because he'd have a case with me, we'd work it. I couldn't get him reassigned. He'd go somewhere else. As soon as that case would end, he'd call me back and I'd reassign him somewhere else. So Boat wanted to get a raise one time. And I'm the business development person. I'm the vice president of the Care Choice. And Brian's the big boss. And he's asking me for a raise. And I said, Boat, listen, man, I don't do the raises or whatever. That's Brian. You got to call Brian. And he called me the Home Care Jesus, right? He goes,
Home Care Jesus.
I pray to the Father in Jesus' name. I talk to you to go to Brian to get me a raise. And so I go home, I said, I'll get you a raise, right? So I go to Brian, and Brian's like, I don't know if we can give him a raise. And I said, Brian, he called me Jesus, okay? And he goes, yeah, and he goes, he called you God. And he goes, all right, I guess we could give him a raise, right? It was hysterical. So the reason why I'm sharing that is because that's a true story, right? It was hysterical. And, but that's because the relationship is there. The communicate, I'm texting, I'm physically in there seeing them when they're working. And that's what leads to caregivers saying things like, David, I'll never work for another company but you, because you take care of me, you get me, and we're always talking. That's what it takes to retain caregivers. It make them feel like they actually work for your company and not just the patient, and then that creates the loyalty.
I love that. Okay, 2 more things I want to hit, and then we'll get out of here. The first is everybody's got an administrative team. Not everybody, but folks who've grown have figured out how to kind of backfill for the responsibilities they did when they were starting out as the owner. You've got schedulers, you've got recruiters, you've got a director of operations. What's one thing that you see that's maybe a missed opportunity, an area for improvement as leaders think about the folks on their team in their office?
One of the things to do with the administrative team, your office staff, right? I feel that we do not spend enough time morale boosting in our offices. And so something that we used to do at Care Choice and something that I recommend all my clients do, usually late summer, and then we get ready for the holiday season too, but several times a year, do close the office an hour or two early, go to a happy hour, go bowling, go play a round of mini golf, some kind of team building on company time. And it's important that it's on company time. A lot of you who follow me on social media, you know that in July, every 4th of July, the week of 4th of July, things slow down for us. So on the 3rd of July, because we're usually off on the 4th, if it happens to be midweek, I close the office for the day, a day early, because we're not open on the holiday anyway. And I take my entire staff out and we go out on my boat. And we go out and we have a great day. They're paid for the day, but they're laughing. I'm smoking a cigar. They're having some drinks. We're going out in the Barnegat Bay. We jump in the water and swim. I go up to I'll beach the boat a little bit. We'll go out on the island. We'll go somewhere and dock and have lunch. That morale boosting, that team bonding, though, you can't put a value on that. You can't put a dollar amount on that. And that gets everybody excited. So if you want to have a strong fourth quarter, do something now to recognize and reward the hard work, even if things are down. Sometimes especially when things are down. You might have had a fatal Monday, right? The end of summer is real slow. A couple of clients passed away and discontinued services. And now you don't have any referrals coming in. So it's like everyone's freaking out. The morale is probably very low, right? Everybody's stressed out. Close up the office an hour early, take your people out, do something, spend $100, right? It's the time with them. It's the morale. They work together every day. It creates the bond. The last thing I'll throw out there with this is if you notice that there's somebody who doesn't fit in the organization, and I hate to say this, but I'm a big believer, liberate people, right? You liberate them from their position, make a change. Don't keep toxic people in your organization, no matter how valuable you think they are. If they're toxic and they're bringing everyone else down, just part ways and bring in a new person. It's all about the company culture. You want to grow strong, make sure the office staff culture is strong. That will have a trickle effect to your caregivers and then the work that they do for your patients.
That's huge. Okay, last question. What is one thing that you see many of your clients, many owners in this space need to get off their plate?
I'd say the number one thing that people need to get off their plate is indecisiveness. I can't stress this enough. I see a lot of people get this analysis paralysis. We're always analyzing. We're always looking at things. We're always thinking about the next great thing or what should I do. Let's talk artificial intelligence for a second because that's the hot word, right? I know I have to have artificial intelligence, but which one? And if I commit to this one today, a better one might come tomorrow. And then days turn into weeks, weeks turn into months, and months turn into years, and you didn't do anything because of indecisiveness. So when it comes to making a decision, anything, moving forward with a consultant, doing a training, going to some event, whatever it is, I always say, do your research. When you find your research and what you think will be the right solution or the right thing to move forward with, sleep on it for one night. Just one night. And if you wake up the next day and you still feel that this is the right thing to do, move forward. Even if it's not the right thing, you can recover from the wrong decision, but you'll never recover and you'll never grow if you don't make a decision at all. So indecisive, I know more indecisive people in this space than anything else. Make a decision, learn, sleep on it, make the decision, and run with it.
That's great. All right, Steve, you have a boot camp coming up in November in Houston. Tell people who listen to the show about that and how they can get involved.
Come to the bootcamp, homecareevolution.com. That's our website. You click on the event and it says bootcamp, or you can just go homecareevolution.com/bootcamp. This is the Millionaires Bootcamp. So what does that mean? This is not for reps. This is not for operations folks. This is for owners. It's all about scaling your business in 2026, how to grow your business by multiple 7 figures. So if I'm a $3 million business, I want to get to 5 million. I'm a $5 million business, I want to get to 10 million. That's what this event is about. Operations, recurring revenue, sales and marketing, recruitment, retention, business planning, forecasting, lots of KPIs, lots of know-how on scaling your business. The Home Care Millionaires Bootcamp, Houston, Texas, November, I want to say 19th, 20th, and 21st. It's the week before Thanksgiving.
Awesome. Well, we'll put links to that in the show notes. And Zengage, we are going to be there. Steve, we hadn't gone to your events before, but we've had a great time at 2 of your events this year. We'll be back at this one. I've got some free tickets. And so ping me on LinkedIn or email me and claim those tickets. We'll hook you up. I've got 5 of them. So first 5 people who ping me, you are getting those tickets. Steve, thank you so much for coming on the show today. Really good to catch up. Appreciate you hanging with me through the baby getting home, through the refrigerator getting delivered. My goodness, it's a chaotic Friday, but it is so good to catch up, my friend.
I appreciate you, brother, and it is always good to catch up with you. You're one of the good ones out there. I talk to a lot of people, and there's probably about maybe 6 or 7 people that I would put like in my inner circle that I trust and I like to do stuff with regularly. You're in that inner circle, brother. So God bless you.
I appreciate it. I'll be excited to catch up in November. All right, take care. On behalf of the team here at Zengage, thanks for listening to the show. We'll be back next week with another episode, so be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts on Spotify or Apple or YouTube. Leave us a rating while you're there. It helps other people find the show. If you have comments on the show, drop me a line, david@zengage.com. Would love to hear from you, chat with you there.